Welcome back everyone. Today we'll be discussing the Jordan 3 Cardinal Red. Specifically, we'll be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Jordan 3 Cardinal Red and why that is. To preface this, if you guys enjoy these types of videos regarding the market, reselling, and even info on how to acquire these limited products, be sure to subscribe and enable post notifications. This way, you're always 100% updated. Furthermore, for more urgent updates like the recent Jordan 1 patent bred shock drop, follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and also personals for you. And of course, for early information before these drops actually occur, make sure to follow Endurance's Twitter for updates on the next restock. For those who do not know, the Jordan 3 Cardinal Red releases on February 19th, tomorrow, alongside the Yeezy 500 Blush, those of which I just also made a seller hold analysis as well for, so after this video, feel free to check that out as well. Retail will be $200 for men's sizes on these, those of which we'll be focusing on today. Stock between all sizes combined worldwide is just over 90,000 pairs, which is just hardly below average for Jordan 3 general release. However, when it comes to this release in particular, a lot of retailers do have delayed men's stock shipments. In other words, not all the men's pairs will be dropping tomorrow. Not to mention, the vast majority of all Europe retailers are delayed until just a couple of days from now. With that said, we might be in for a pretty unique post-drop situation tomorrow because of this, and I'll explain why that is soon. In order to determine if the Jordan 3 Cardinal Red will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range that the sneaker will settle at after the drop, and also when shipments come in, essentially all the pairs going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time, and finally, what type of margin are we looking at for these in terms of holding. Not the retail to resell initial margin, but rather just the hold margin over X period of time. Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should be settling at. To begin with, stock for these is just hardly below average for a Jordan 3 general release. While that won't have so much of a unique effect, what will is the fact that some of the men's pairs are actually delayed. We're going to talk in detail about how this affects things soon. In terms of demand, these actually have very impressive demand for a Jordan 3 or any Jordan for that matter. Despite pre-sale remaining quite high, the sale volume is still extremely impressive, in addition to very consistent bids, of course. Comparing this sale volume to the Blush 500s that we discussed earlier today, it's really like night and day. Just look at how many there are in each single hour alone for these. For Jordan 3, this is very notable. With the just hardly below average stock and well above average demand, I definitely see these remaining profitable with a good to very good margin, and not just in the large sizes. I'm going for all sizes on these personally, contrary to what I initially said in my monthly releases video. Now, regarding a specific price range, prices have already seen the vast majority of their pre-drop decrease following the Flex app reservation pre-sellers, Finish Line early access pairs, and general early pairs. This leaves the current average at about $269 for sizes 8 to 12, but of course, this is only the pre-drop average. We normally see a notable change post-US drop. This is what we normally experience, what I like to refer to as the impulsivity effect. You guys should know what I'm referring to by now, as we discuss this very frequently, yet it almost still always occurs to some degree. Regarding the impulsivity effect, if you haven't watched my seller hold videos before, sneaker drops specifically impact human impulsiveness significantly after an individual fails to acquire that desired product due to insufficient supply and too much demand. Therefore, on average, we normally see about a 10% increase of the pre-drop price post-drop, although as of late 2021 and 2022, 5% has been much more common. Now that 5 to 10% isn't always the case, such as when a sneaker is already slightly overvalued. Like I discussed in my other video today, an example of the contrary is the Beluga 350, which decreased by 5% as we did expect. When it comes to these Jordan 3s, however, do I feel that these are overvalued at $269 pre-drop? Well, not necessarily, given this insane amount of sale volume at these prices. So in a normal case, I'd likely have expected a 5% increase after this. But this isn't exactly normal situation. Remember, as I alluded to earlier, there are quite a bit of delayed shipments for men's pairs, and on top of that, the vast majority of all Europe retailers will be in a few days from now. It's not going to be tomorrow. So this combined with a 5% impulsivity effect that I was already expecting, I think it's possible we might get that good old 10% increase on these. You probably think I'm crazy saying that about a Jordan 3 general release, and maybe I am, and this could be completely wrong by all means. This is simply just my current notion based off this given situation. And if the delayed shipments aren't that bad, then I'll probably be incredibly wrong, but at least you get to have an entertaining video, right? Therefore, with that potential 10% increase, if this is the case, this will of course leave the averages at about $296. In other words, most of the smaller sizes could be in the mid to upper 200s, while some of the larger sizes might even touch the low 300 range. Remember though, this is just temporary, especially in this case. Now let's discuss what prices will look like when shipments go out in the 1 to 2 week range. So during this period, the vast majority of pairs will be going into circulation, aside from the amount of pairs that already went out through exclusive access, early pairs, and in-store pairs, and in this case in particular, the delayed shipments. Considering we have just about average stock on these, I normally would not expect any abnormal rate of decrease, likely just the usual 10%. However, when those delayed shipments do eventually drop throughout other retailers, I do believe we'll see an additional 5% decrease, because since those initially didn't go into circulation, it's because of that prices might have been inflated post-drop. So eventually that's going to catch up to us, of course. So rather than the typical 1 to 2 week range, given this unique situation instead, let's say a 15% decrease over a 2 to 3 week post-drop range. This would then hypothetically leave prices at about $252. In other words, large sizes will be in the upper 200s, while the smaller sizes will be in the lower to mid 200s. But regardless, even at that trough, that still leaves sufficient room for profit nonetheless. Now that the average price ranges at those points in time are evident though, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase from that post-shipment range or even hypothetically decrease. When it comes to these, I feel some pretty useful comparisons with similar color blocking attributes are the 2021 Jordan 3 Racer Blue, in addition to the Jordan 3 Katrina from 2018. First, let's take a look at the Jordan 3 Racer Blue from 2021. This was a pair that had very low demand initially, much less than what we've seen on these Cardinals as of right now. However, even these have seen a pretty decent increase from about $225 to $275, all in less than a year's time, to almost about a 25% ROI, which isn't bad for a shoe that had low demand initially. On the other hand, we also have the Jordan 3 Katrina, which also shares some similar color blocking attributes, but gives us a more long-term perspective considering these released all the way back in 2018. Initially, these also didn't have much demand. In fact, even for a whole year and a half, they essentially plateaued with hardly any increases, which definitely is not a good sign. However, long term, they eventually did see a very notable increase, as they're now sitting in the upper 400 range. So now when it comes to these Jordan 3 Cardinals, assuming they do eventually settle in a trough of $250, I would at the very least see these increasing in the short term just as the Racer Blues did, essentially to the upper 200 range, maybe even the low 300 range within a 1 year period, which is definitely good, but not as good as we've seen on some other holds, considering these would be starting at the 250 range, which leaves less room for a good ROI given that that's quite high already. Furthermore, we also see from the Katrinas that these may very well have very notable long-term potential as well, which is fantastic, and that's definitely a plus. Hence, I think that these will certainly be increasing after that post-shipment trough, but it will likely take a while just to reach that post-drop peak again that was inflated due to the delayed shipments. Finally, regarding the hold margin on these, essentially, are these actually going to be worth your time even if they do go up? So even though I am expecting these to increase after that post-shipment trough, what we also have to consider is that potential profit you can make had you sold these as soon as possible, given this potentially unique situation with the delayed shipments. While I do see good short-term potential on these, I'm not sure if it's enough to offset that inflated amount that you might be able to make off these initially if you had sold these right off the bat. Hypothetically, had the Europe date been on the same day and had there been no delayed men's stock, I believe I would be more than likely to rate this an above average hold, especially given the great long-term potential as well, as we've seen on those 2018 Katrinas. However, because we may see some inflated prices tomorrow, it might also be worth taking advantage of those inflated prices and quick flipping these. So in that hypothetical case that we do see those prices, I'd rate these a 5 out of 10 hold, just about average, which still isn't bad, but I'll probably be quick selling most of my pairs. However, I also do think it's important to mention if I'm wrong. What if prices do stay the same at what they're at right now? In that case, I'd likely rate these a 6 out of 10 hold, which is above average. So that's the rating for both potential situations, because I may very well be completely wrong, so I wanted to provide both perspectives still. In either of the scenarios though, I still don't see both being a bad hold. At the very least, they're an average hold or an above average hold. And this mainly just derives from the immense demand demand that we're seeing right now. So if we do see inflated prices due to delayed shipments, I will be quick selling my pairs. However, if I am wrong, then I'll probably hold some of my pairs. We shall see what happens. Also, just a note in general for anyone considering holding any items with low capital, you should never hold anything in general if you don't have sufficient capital to go for as many drops as possible at your full potential without holding back. If you do need money to go for all drops, try to sell these as soon as possible. Let me know what you guys are doing with your pairs down in the comments below. Since this is just a discussion at the end of the day, I can't predict the future. This is just my personal analysis based on the data that I've acknowledged. We have a lot of brilliant minds watching the video right now, so I implore you to leave your notions down in the comments below. But anyway, that will conclude it for today. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed, or perhaps if you learned a thing or two, subscribe and enable post notifications. This way you stay 100% updated on all hyped releases. Also, feel free to check out the links in the description below for reliable, fast, residential proxies and pre-verified Nike sneakers or Adidas accounts. Also, feel free to follow Endurance's Twitter for updates on restocks or key giveaways, and the same goes for Gargantua if you want to keep up with the progress or restocks. Last but not least, make sure to follow Keith Adam 10 and also Personals for You. This way you guys stay updated on all urgent info like I was discussing today. With that though, I will see you guys later. Have a fantastic rest of your day.